As you know, this is the week that the Ninth Circuit struck down the votes of 7 million Californians, and to add insult to the injury, told them that they were irrational bigots for wanting to protect marriage as one man and one woman. So I'm very pleased to have with us Professor John Eastman.
It's an honor to be on this panel with Phyllis and indeed everybody up here. I am the Henry Salvatori Professor of Law and Community Service at Chapman. For those of you that are older than 30, you may know the significance of the Henry Salvatori Professorship there. We've heard about how important marriage is to our fiscal health in this country. And so the question I get all the time on the stump is, so why not expand it? Let's have it open to everybody. Well, there's some great evidence in the trial record in the Proposition 8 litigation by the proponents of same-sex marriage that I think will answer that question. But first, you have to look at the background. What is it the institution of marriage does? And this also part of the record. And the reason I keep referring to the record here is because there's this false claim that's been made by Ted Olson and David Boies against my dear friend Chuck Cooper that he introduced no evidence into the record. There are thousands and thousands of pages in the record stating the obvious, that marriage is and always has been an institution core to civil society, grounded in the nature of human beings. Men and women are necessary to make babies. This is in the record. He was an expert witness, introduced posthumously. William Blackstone, speaking of the great relations in public life, talks about marriage as the relationship of a husband and wife, founded in nature, but modified by civil society. The one directing man to continue and multiply his species, the other prescribing the manner in which that natural impulse must be confined and regulated for the benefit of society. That's why we have the marriage laws we have. But here's what the proponents of same-sex marriage introduced into their evidence. Bill Eskridge says that enlarging marriage to encompass something that it never did, to embrace same-sex couples, would necessarily transform that institution into something new and different. Same-sex marriage is a breathtakingly subversive idea, another bit of evidence said. It will conferring legitimacy of marriage on homosexual relations will introduce an implicit revolt against the institution into its very heart. If same-sex marriage becomes legal, that venerable institution will ever after stand for sexual choice, for cutting the link between sex and diapers. It is the most recent development in the deinstitutionalization of marriage, which he defines as the weakening of the social norms that define people's behavior in marriage. So if you want to worry about the fiscal crisis we have and the dependency on government that comes from the breakdown of marriage, then embrace this radical transformation. Judge Steve Reinhardt, in his opinion, in order to say that there is no legitimate governmental purpose, no rational basis for the traditional understanding of marriage, has to completely and dramatically redefine it. It's no longer about the complementarity of the sexes in a union that will produce children and transmit our culture and our norms to the next generation. It is rather all about the sexual choices of adults. Because marriage, he says, falsely, is the name that society gives to the relationship that matters most between two adults. It's all about the adults. It's not about the kids. How can we cease to have an institution that protects the kids, that induces self-sacrifice to perpetuate our society for the next generation, if it's no longer about that? This will dramatically transform the institution in ways that will have catastrophic consequences for civil society. This is a fight we have to have. Now, let me tell you logistically and encourage all you to become part of this effort. The narrative that is being written right now for the Supreme Court of the United States is aimed at one man, Justice Anthony Kennedy. And the narrative that is being written by the left is that, Justice Kennedy, do you want to be the single vote to stop the inevitable progress toward equality? Well, somebody gave me a sticker yesterday. Equality is M equals man and woman. That's an equation that makes sense. It's an equation that makes sense because from that union, unlike any other, what flows from that are children, and we need children to perpetuate the society. The narrative cannot be, Justice Kennedy, will you be the last vote to stop progress? The narrative that we all have to write every chance we get between now and when this case is heard in the Supreme Court of the United States is, Do you want to be the critical vote that will destroy the institution that has been the bedrock of civil society since time immemorial? Let me now tie this back more directly to the theme of our panel and how it ties to the fiscal crisis we have. Our founders pledged not to benefit themselves, but they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to produce a regime that would benefit their posterity. Abraham Lincoln, in his greatest speech, acknowledged the dedication of those who gave the last full measure of devotion to vindicate the self-evident truths of our Declaration of Independence, and he challenged his fellow citizens then and each and every one of us now to continue that battle. The greatest generation, we call them, in World War II, they fought to protect us and to protect the possibility of democracy. The me generation of the 60s and the entitlement generation now has completely lost the notion of self-sacrifice. We have to get that back. We no longer secure the blessings of liberty to our posterity, one of the great parts of the preamble of our Constitution. We've got a bunch of people stealing the silver on the staking sheet of ship, and we have to change that. And then let me close with this, because one of the things that's been left out of the conversation thus far is the question of life. Do we really think that a society that is willing to tolerate the taking of innocent human life in the womb is going to have any concern about handing the remainder of those that survive that process? The conjunction between life and marriage and our fiscal sanity and fiscal health cannot be stronger, and we have to fight on every one of those fronts if we are going to succeed. Thank you.